Suzy.
Yes, Zach. How the fuck are you?
Well, we're doing fucking great, man. We're surviving.
Good.
Yeah. Hell yeah. We just got done blasting your new single, Survivor. Fucking love it, man. Kicking ass.
Yeah, I was listening. So I knew that you just played it. That's cool. Thanks.
Hell yeah. So tell us, you're live right now on the Zach Moonshine Show with Metal Devastation fucking radio. Tell the world, man, what's going on in Suzy's world?
Oh, a lot of stuff. Working on new music always. Actually trying to put together a band for a change, because it's called Suzy and The Substitutes because it keeps changing, and of course the dog starts barking. I don't know what she's barking at.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you already have a band going. Like what?
Hang on just 1 second. Okay, now I have that distraction out of the room. All right, so I'm back.
So yeah, you were saying that you're trying to put together a band, but it sounds like you got a band. Like what's the deal?
I have a bunch of bands. I have a bunch of musicians, but when I started out doing things, I worked with a lot of different people, all the wrong people, and then I finally found the right people, and I've been working with them for a while. But I also happen to know a lot of really talented musicians who play on most of my stuff. I've had Joe Vitale, who's played with Joe Walsh since college and plays just about any instrument you can think, has played on a lot of my stuff. The Fretless Monster, Tony Franklin, actually plays on that song. And various sundry other people have played on different things. I've played live at the Whiskey several times, and it's been a different band pretty much every time I've played. It's kind of funny. I can put together a band in LA. I can't put together a band in Houston where I live. But I think I've finally gotten that taken care of, and we're going to get started on trying to do some actual live shows here in my hometown.
Hell yeah. So what's it like playing at the Whiskey, man? That's a fucking legendary place right there, man.
Oh, it is. And it was kind of weird the first time I played there, because I'm also involved in a charity event called Crew Fest Hollywood that was started back in 2001.
Crew Fest.
By a bunch of, they stole our name. We started it in 2001 back when message boards were the only thing online. There was no social media, and everybody wanted to get together and meet. So we decided, well, let's meet in LA. How about at the Whiskey? Let's have a show. Let's raise some money for cancer. And we've been doing it since 2001. I've been involved in the planning and organizing since about 2007. And so the first time I played there, it was weird because I wasn't running the show. All I had to do was show up and play. And that was just a really weird feeling, because I'm usually running the box office and in charge of the backstage crew and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of surreal.
Well, you mentioned Crew Fest, and honestly, anytime anybody ever mentions the Whiskey, that's the first thing that my mind goes to is Motley Crue, because all the fucking stories and all the wild shit, that happened back in the day with with those guys, and so many other bands that have graced that stage. I mean, it's insane. Like, what was it like? What was it like standing on that stage, knowing that you're standing on the fucking same wood that all these fucking Legendary
it was
people.
crazy. And actually, the first time I stood on that stage, I was actually doing a rock and roll fantasy camp, and I was on stage singing with Paul Stanley from Kiss. So that was even more surreal.
Wow. Fucking Paul
And
Stanley.
I've played there twice with 4 of the 5 members of Judas Priest for another rock and roll fantasy camp. So that's pretty wild.
It is. I mean, I'm telling you, as much of a fucking heavy metal maniac as I am, like I would be up there, I don't know, rubbing the stage and shit, trying to soak up some of the juju from it, you know.
You're standing on this amazing stage in this amazing venue, and Rob Halford's standing there singing with you, and he's got his arm around you, or Paul Stanley, and you're singing rock and roll all night.
That's awesome.
That's pretty wild.
That's awesome.
But then I have gotten to do my own originals there too as well, and that was pretty cool.
Hell yeah! Well, tell us a little brief history. You know, give us your background and tell us how you got started and how this all came together.
Well, it's kind of a long story because I'm kind of old, but
we got time.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, all I ever wanted to do was music. That was. And I grew up in a really tiny town in Mississippi, and it was a dry county, so there were no bars or any place for bands to play. I didn't even know anybody that played guitar till I was in college. It's just there weren't music opportunities other than marching band, really, that any time anybody would let me get on a stage and sing, or if there was any kind of thing musical, I would try to do it. There's a joke called, when I was a kid I wanted to play the piano badly, and now that I'm an adult I do play it badly. Because I always just wanted it just enough so that I could practice, but not enough. I didn't have delusions of being Elton John and playing and singing at the same time. But we moved to Houston in 1980, and I'm like, this is awesome. There's clubs with bands. There's places I can go and audition. And I started talking about it, and everybody I talked to about it just looked at me like I was insane. And so I kind of took it to mean that they didn't think I could sing as well as I thought I could sing. So I worked in PR and advertising instead until about 15 years ago, when I was actually helping somebody I knew in a band with trying to sell his artwork, because he's also a painter. And he's like, so you're a writer and you're a singer, why don't you write songs? And I was like, well, because I don't know how to write music and I don't know anybody who does. And so I started working with him, which was a huge mistake, but it got me started. And here if that hadn't happened, I don't know that I'd be here where I am now. But I've released 2 EPs, and I'm in the process, I think this is the 4th single in a line of songs headed toward a 3rd EP that we're working on. We had decided after we released the 2nd one, that was when we were going to try to put the band together, but unfortunately COVID had other plans. So we went back to writing and recording, because we could do that without, getting out too much. Because most of the people that play on a lot of my stuff have their own studios, so they record and send the stuff to my collaborator, producer, everything. Norman, and so he then takes it and makes it into something amazing.
Hell yeah. That's cool that you mentioned PR and getting into other stuff too, other avenues, because I feel you on that. Like, I started out just writing and recording my own music and putting out my own stuff, and then I kind of got fucking bored with it. I was just like, man, there's all these other bands out there. Like, I should just fucking help everybody else, you know, and fucking just do something to be a part of it. And, like, that's how I got into this whole radio and PR and everything else. But, like, sort of similar.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally understand. I got to give a big shout out to Wendy Jasper too, man, because I met her recently. She came to our festival with Bloodstained Dusk, and when I met her, one of the first things she said to me, she was like, "I got this lady Suzy. You got to talk to her. You got to have her on your show." And I was like, "Okay, whatever you want, Wendy, we'll do it." And so let me ask you, how did you get hooked up with Wendy?
Well, it's one of those things. I met her. I was actually putting together a show for a music school in Dallas that her son was involved in at the time. But we think that we knew each other before that, because she used to live in Houston before she lived in Dallas, and she's back in Houston now. Because when I met her, I kept thinking, I know you from somewhere. And I think we had at least been in the same circles if we hadn't actually known each other. Because I just had the same thing happen. She helped me find the drummer that's going to be in my local band. And when he walked in, we both looked at each other and went, I know you. We still are not quite sure exactly how, but we think that his band used to play at a club that I lived at. That I was there like 5 nights a week listening to bands, and his band played there all the time. So we think that's it, but we're not quite sure. But it was like, we just went, I know you. And it was the same thing with Wendy.
That's funny.
We actually just hung out this past weekend.
Oh yeah, you know what? It's funny. It's such a small world. Like it's big, but at the same time, with all these little circles that we all run in, like it all sort of it becomes small. You know?
Yes, I'm always surprised because I'll see somebody comment on one of my friends' posts, and I'm like, how do they know that person? Because they're from a different area than where I know that person from. And it's like, how do they know each other? It's just crazy.
Hell yeah. Well, that's the fucking metal world right there, man. It is very connected. It's awesome. I love it. It's a giant family.
Yes, definitely.
Dysfunctional at times, but overall, it's pretty good.
Yeah, just like any family, like you said, there's some dysfunction, but I found that most other musicians are very supportive and very, eager to help other people that are trying to do the same kind of thing, because there's plenty of room out there for all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. We just did our second festival a few weeks ago here in Tennessee, and that was one of the biggest things that I took away from it. Just like the first time, but even more so the second time, it was just how much the bands all supported each other. Like, I can't tell you how many times I was standing out front watching somebody jam, and we're headbanging and looking over next to me, and here's so and so that from another band that was on the lineup, and everybody was just supporting each other, and moshing and headbanging and throwing horns for each other and cheering them on, and that's cool to see, like that's
Yes,
what
definitely.
you gotta have, you gotta do it. You can't, I don't know. You see all those memes and stuff where they talk about fucking band, the opener bands leaving and not hanging out for the full thing or whatnot.
Or the headliner doesn't show up until it's time for them to go on.
Right. Yeah, fuck that, man. Like it's gotta be a big. We're all in this together, We're all the same, man.
Well, and we should all love music and want to hear other people's music and get inspired by it, or whatever. Because you can always learn something new all the time.
Exactly. Well, speaking of inspiration, tell us some of the bands and stuff that you grew up listening to. Like what got you into music? What are some of the first?
That's kind of a funny story, because when I was like elementary school kid back in the 60s, my best friend, the only other girl in the neighborhood, had a teenage brother who was in high school. And so we were in her room playing with dolls and having tea parties, and he was blasting Frank Zappa and Vanilla Fudge and just the Doors.
Yeah.
A lot of the really heavier hard rock of that time. And so when I got older, that's kind of the music I like all kinds of stuff, but that's where my primary focus is the, the darker, heavier music. I've always liked that. So it's just, but I have like, because I'm a words person and lyrics, because I write lyrics, and then I kind of tell Norman what I'm thinking about how I want the song to sound, and it's gotten to the point now I don't even have to tell him, because our brains have synced up, and he kind of knows where I'm headed with it before I even tell him. But I one of my favorite artists, and people think it's crazy, is Leon Russell, and I could talk to you about Leon Russell for a million years. But most people wouldn't think that I would have ever listened to Leon Russell. But I listen to a lot of singer-songwriters because I really like the lyrics to their songs. But I also like all the heavy, dark stuff, and listen to all sorts of different bands.
What was your first concert that you went to?
You're going to laugh. I think I was 8 years old, and my mother took me to see the Carpenters.
Nice. Hey,
I laugh at my son because he will tell you his first concert was Kiss, but depending on the day it is and how I'm feeling about it, I will tell you that it was NSYNC.
Well, a lot of people laugh at me because when they ask me what my first concert was, I'll tell them it was Cinderella opening up for Bon Jovi at the Capitol Center in back in,
that would have been an awesome show.
God, that was back in 86, I think, 87. I was like 8 years old. My babysitter took me with me to her.
Cool.
To it. Yeah.
I used to take my nephews to shows.
I loved it. Oh my God, it blew my mind. I could not believe it. Like I still remember when we got there to the concert, and we were getting ready to get out of the car, and I was just looking around and seeing all these metalheads and all these people with big hair and fucking all this stuff, and I was just like, wow, like this is really happening. And like I almost couldn't walk, like I was so nervous about it. But then when we went in there and the lights went out and the band came on and they started playing, it just blew my mind. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed. I mean, of course, my next concert I think was Slayer, which was like 5 years later, which was totally different, totally fucking to the other extreme. But yeah, I mean, I still love all that old stuff. Like, I mean, I grew up in that era, so it's just.
Yeah, unfortunately, where I lived, there weren't a lot of large venues, because like even though I grew up in Mississippi, Elvis never played there until right before he passed, because there were no venues large enough to hold the crowds. And I think he played either 3 or 4 nights of sold out shows when he played then, because there were just so many people, and like I said, there wasn't anywhere big enough to hold him, so they just kept having more and more shows. So it wasn't till probably college I started getting to actually see some bands. And then when we moved to Houston, definitely then, big band. Although there's some bands that just seem for whatever reason to never come here. And I'm like, we're the 4th largest city in the country. Why don't you come here?
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of people play it in Houston. Like, that's a major city.
Yeah.
I know. Ever since I moved here to Tennessee, like it's been a battle to get fucking shows here. Like, it's only in recent years that it started happening, but it's only in the bigger cities in Memphis and Nashville.
Yeah.
And, we're in a hub city, Jackson, which is in between those two big ones. And we're trying to change that. We're trying to bring a lot of bands here and grow the scene here, because there's a lot of people here that are just starving for it. Like they never get to see that stuff, and it's hard.
Oh yeah,
it's not easy to just pack up everything and drive 2 or 3 hours somewhere and then get a hotel and everything.
And my parents weren't going to let us drive to New Orleans or Atlanta, which were the closest places, by ourselves as teenagers. So, that until I went to college, and there, some of the sports arenas at the university were large enough to get a few bands, but we still didn't get, the really big bands of the time. But there was more to choose from. And then, like I said, once we got to Houston, and I started making up for lost time, going to see anybody and everybody I could get to see.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Yeah, I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for a while during my teenage years, and that's pretty much what I did when I was out there. I was just soaking it up because everybody was playing there, so I was able to go, just constantly go and see just anybody that I possibly could. And I love live music. There's nothing like it. I mean, you know what? Live albums are my favorite out of all. Like, a lot of people, some people aren't really into live records, but like, that's my favorite shit. Like, there's so many good live records. I love that.
Yeah, and when people were doing lives back during COVID and things, and I would talk to somebody and they go, "Oh yeah, I messed up," or something happened. I was like, "But that's what makes it cool.
Yes,
that's what makes it live." I wanted to listen to Perfect. I'd listen to it on the recording. I want to hear it live with all the stuff that happens when it is live. That's way better to me, because it's hard for some bands to capture their energy on a recording in a studio, and especially nowadays where everybody's recording separately, and they're not all in the same room feeding off each other like they are when they're up on stage and are in the moment playing this song. That's just something that's really cool. And very different than listening to just a plain old, studio recording of something. So yeah, the live recordings are cool too.
Hell yeah. Well, tell us what's coming up next for Suzy and the Substitutes. What do you guys have planned for the future?
Well, like I said, I'm going to have hopefully a band here in Houston and start playing some shows starting at the beginning of the year, because the guys have got to all learn all the songs, because it's it's all my songs, and so they've got to learn them. And also just keep releasing songs. We've got at least 3 more songs that we recorded during COVID that we haven't released yet. And then we'll start over working on some more new songs, I guess. And getting out and playing live, and who knows?
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, Suzy, I'm about out of questions for you. Is there anything else you want to let the people know?
I think we covered a lot of it. Thanks for playing the song. Hope people enjoyed it, and that they'll check me out.
Hell yeah. Well, where can people go to check you out? Like, where's the best place they can go?
I'm on every download streaming platform, YouTube, all that stuff. Just look for Suzy and the Substitutes on Facebook, Instagram, on Spotify, YouTube, and like about 50 other sites. And you should find me there.
Very cool.
And you can also find me at www.suzyandthesubstitutes.com, where you'll find all my music videos, all my songs, all the interviews, a lot of extra stuff there. A lot of cool stuff.
Awesome. All right, well, Suzy, before I let you go, can I get you to make us a station tag real quick?
Sure.
All right, whenever you're ready, say something like, "This is Suzy and the Substitutes, and you're listening to Metal Devastation Radio."
This is Suzy from Suzy and the Substitutes, and you're listening to Metal Devastation Radio.
Fuck yeah. All right, well, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to us. Really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Hell yeah. Well, we look forward to hearing more stuff from you and seeing what happens in the future, all right?
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later, Suzy.
All right.
Cheers.
To you too.
There you have it, folks. Suzy and the Substitutes live on the Zach Moonshine Show with Metal Devastation motherfucking Radio. Like I said earlier, put your speakers in your fucking windows, put them in your front lawns, put them in your neighbor's driveway, do whatever the fuck you gotta do. Make everybody around you fucking hear this shit. If you don't see U-Haul trucks everywhere tomorrow, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, man, but you're not cranking it up like we are, man. Here's a brand new track from COBRA SPELL. Crank it the fuck up.